Well, and I'm pretty sure you can attest to this. And this is a stumbling block that a lot of new healers get into. Healers, psychics, mediums, whatever title you want to take on, and what you value is, man, I can't do this for very long. I get exhausted. I get tired
Mm.
because you're using your source energy. Guys, come on. We need to help you understand when you connect, when you are the universe, you have like access infinite amount of information, energy, frequency. It's no longer using your physical form, and this is where people get caught up in this little thing where, more often than not, massage therapists, acupuncturists, I get a lot of like doctors of medical, like MDs, doctors of Chinese medicine, chiropractors. They all come through, and that there's nothing more powerful than frequency, energy, vibration. And so they throw their tools out, and they're like, man, this stuff ain't working. It's like functional medicine, just conventional medicine, whatever. I want to see results. And they always come back. And the most powerful pillar of ancient Taoist practices, or even Chinese medicine, which was created by a Taoist, is energy. It's just, I mean, it's just, that's the truth. That's where it comes from. You're gonna get it. But you have to, guys, you have to start with, when you're exhausted, you're tapping into you're getting very invested in the outcome for your ego. And it's not to put you down and go, oh, you're just an egotistical person. You just want, everyone has to start somewhere. They just get immersed in it, and they're like, well, man, it makes me feel good when I see results. I want people to heal. And then once you step over that, where Courtney and I are, from a level of we're not invested in it, then you see profound healings. Then you see things that are like going to blow your mind. If that's what's inspiring you, the faster you go, let go, the more profound the experience is going to be, like instantaneous.
That stream widens, and so we're able to access greater light and receive greater light and connect in that greater form where um, there's no lack, and there's enough. This is the thing too, is I see a lot of teachers think that it has to be their way or the end all. You know what I mean? That's that. And I believe that we're all here to share our voice, share our gift, and in a way play in that energy. And when we do that, the people who are going to or who are supposed to find that mirror within me will, and the mirror within you, and the mirror within everybody else. And there, it's so beautiful, because think of the entire world, this energy that is going to advance because you're awakening to your own gifts and abilities. I believe when we, again, going back to purpose, that's our purpose. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's really powerful. And just like Courtney says, it's like when I do group healings, the most I've ever done is like 1,000 people at a time. You just get into a space, and boom, I click my fingers, we're all interconnected. And so it's like, hang on, whoa, what are you talking about? And now it's fun till daddy take a T-bird away. Now let's supercharge you guys. Bring whatever it is. Bring your mental, emotional problems. Bring your physical problems. Bring your spiritual problem. Whatever it is, you're about to get an upcharge of a realization of true source power that then replicates, and it just levels up, because people are like, it's crazy. Like when I get a healing from Latsu, it's like instantly. Excuse me. Excuse me. When he gives you a healing, they feel it before it happens.
Mm.
So like that's another indicator of just a neural network, how it works. But like the energy comes in, and then it's like, hang on, just before you said that, I was feeling a buildup of all this stuff. And when you get it on a group level, it's so profound. Like I see, I watch your podcast. It's amazing. It's an
Oh,
incredible podcast. And when you do your podcast, it's like the amount of gems and the amount of healing that people get just from you being there. It's
thank you.
like people just don't. The magnitude of that is like you can go back to any one of her podcasts and experience the frequency, energy, vibration that she brought in on that day, and bathe in it, guys. Bathe in it, because you're putting out that message, that healing, that epiphany, that level of consciousness that comes from it. It's a digital healing that you've put out there. It's not just like we're not just going, oh, we're getting a little insight. Because you transmit this, it's imprinting, it's in it's been the very essence of that experience. And so it's
Mm.
so profound to watch. And you do that every time that I've ever witnessed any of your stuff. It's you. That's you. That's just who
Well,
you are.
thank you. It's part of that. It's, I'm here practicing what I preach, doing my own work, growing, breathing, connecting. And again, I mean, if you've watched it, and you've seen I stop mid sentence to breathe heaviness out, honor whatever it is that's coming through, whether that's a question or I speak of something that feels, you know, if it's a certain form of energy or I feel it in my body, I honor it by taking the time for me, whether there's a camera or not. That is, for me, that's true connection, that I'm actually giving myself space for me. And I think that when we've not been taught to take that time, that 27 minutes, that 20 minutes a day, to connect within. And if we do that, the way that our lives will expand will be extramental. I mean, and I always believe if it's happening in one area, it's happening in all areas. And so we are all encompassing, and it's a beautiful place to ground. And so thank you. I enjoy that podcast. It's called Cosmically Connected with Cortney Kane Sides. It is live on the Forbidden Knowledge Network. And then I also go live on my own YouTube page, which is also called Cosmically Connected with Cortney Kane Sides. But we have lots of different topics, and we talk on, sometimes just the energy of the week, or the energy of the last few weeks, or something that's coming up. And I believe that when you're in there, the support that you see, everybody, commenting and showing support for each other, it's another way to bring the world together and connect to something that feels like source within. And I just hope that in my own way that I can help people know that they too have direct connection in their own form, and that it also helps and uplifts their life and their energy.
Yeah, yeah. It's so beautiful. I don't know. How are we for time? Are we good
Yeah.
for time?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Yeah. I felt like there was a hook coming out.
No, we're good. No, we're good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, it really is, and you guys need to really go and check out her podcast, because there's really profound epiphanies that take place, and because you bring the frequency, and because she's not invested in, I need to be perceived as the Messiah or the healer, you're just bringing you. It's so palpable. It's like it's mind melting frequency that comes out of your transmission, and that's just you being you. It's
Thank
like
you.
holy moly, and that comes in so many different forms. Where so Courtney is present, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there watching it, and it's like, I had this shoulder problem. It's gone. I had a migraine. Where is it? And this is part of what goes on. It's just an awareness. I had another psychic. I guess she would call herself a psychic on last week, and you should check her out. Jacinio, Jacinia, and she has a very similar sort of attunement, the way that you and I attune. And she sort of discovered again as a child. She was like, "Oh my goodness!" It's like it just sort of like happened, and you just what she's noticing is an interesting thing, because I think what you're going to come to realize is everything happens for a reason. She kind of just discovered that she could heal herself and others, because she was focusing on the psychic and getting the information and healing people emotionally and spiritually, but like she literally this in the last 6 months went, I can heal people physically, from a different perspective. Like, oh my goodness, you got a broken leg, it fuses, or you've got this cancer, it disappears. She just kind of she's been doing her psychic part for her whole life, and then realized. So I honestly believe that us meeting and this new friendship is sort of leveled up your consciousness, going, hang on a second, I've been doing all these things, and now if I just put my attention to this, all of a sudden these miraculous other components of my own awareness start unraveling. And that's kind of like how I adopt things. I just get exposed to something and I instantly adopt it. It's
Yeah.
like boom.
I believe that. I think there's been a shift since March, and it was showing me that life and death within that breath and that energy at a different form. And I do view and see that as a physical healing, and it's bringing that light in. to our own bodies. And so I agree with you. And I think that that's a really cool thing, that when you say that, it doesn't matter. I've been doing this for like 20 years. You've been doing yours, you say 30 years, which is so incredible. But the gifts never stop expanding. And that is a really cool thing to realize, is that it's a lifetimes, multiple lifetimes of awareness of healing and connecting to that next evolution of now what it looks like. And again, it started about March. So when you say that she's been realizing that since for the last 6 months, I understand that, because those gifts and that awareness and the breath I've been talking about for 10 years, but the way that I understand it today is not the way I thought it or understood it even up to a year ago. I understand the
On a
impact
whole.
and the clearing out, yes, of the frequency and all of that. And there is a physical healing to that. So I appreciate you tuning into that. And I agree.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can attest to that because,
Mhm.
I'm sitting there getting high as a kite, and every time you any respiration, and it's like I'm an amber on a cigarette. It's just like expansive because that's the rippling effects of what you're doing. You're connecting with everything. People need to understand this. It's like, oh, well, what does that mean? How do you do that? You have to believe. That's all it comes down. It's like it's like I feel like a pastor from a be a believer. Amen, brother. Hey, listen, I'm serious. It's
Yeah.
like this is the magnitude that we speak of. And like Courtney has got to a point where no matter how many times over her lifetime, her guides, her guardians, her angels, her source, her frequency has put herself in a place where she's validated this
Mm.
experience. And that knowing is so profound. And when you bring that sort of ascension into a space, everything's altered. As we went back to the epigenetic model, there is DNA is being altered instantaneously. That's why, the old expression, mom would always say, don't hang around with those kids. I don't like you hanging around with Johnny. Well, why?
Yeah.
Because I don't want his bad habits to rub off on you. And that was just like something that we fundamentally talk about. But when you really understand it on a much deeper level, that behavior becomes imprinted. And then all of a sudden, if my eldest son gets some silly, silly joke that, teenagers come up with something that will irritate mom and dad. But
Yes.
then they say it once, then my youngest son is replicating. I'm like, that's it. Go to your room. No switch. No this. No that. Oh, wow. What did I do? You just taught your little brother to do something that I know is not appropriate, and you think it's funny, but now we have to change his behavior. How do you change your behavior? You change your environment. You change. And so now you need to change because you're a leader. You're a leader. Just as Courtney's a leader, I'm a leader, everyone's a leader. We are spiritual leaders helping people attune to this new perception because that's as you were mentioning previously, or I don't think we finished with that, was like, what do you think about the essential? Well, let's look at this from here. You and I could go to the internet right now, get on Yelp, and there's like 47 psychics, there's 100 healers. That didn't exist 10 years ago, not even 5 years ago, where and people are becoming more confident in themselves and realizing, holy moly, this is real. Oh yeah. And you're not getting a bunch of people going, we need to possibly give you a psych evaluation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like I'm that kind of guy. It's like, show me. So I'll show you. And then people are like, oh, I didn't want to see that. I'll be like, do you want to see? Do you want to bear witness that God is real? I gotta go. I'll be right back. Or do you want to fit? Do you want to experience? Because that's the whole point. It's like we're able to bring in these frequencies from our own training, and all of a sudden people are like, holy moly. I mean, I have this all day long. I don't know about you, but I don't mind being pestered by dead celebrities. So, recently I had, Bruce Lee was badgering me for days, and it just so happened to be the 50th anniversary of his death.
Oh, of
I
course.
was like, I didn't realize that
Right.
until after the fact, but it was in my ear for like 5 days. And then finally I did a whole 2 episodes on, he wanted to explain how the intertwining sort of like a realization of what people didn't know was real, but the curse on his family and his son, and how that their physical bodies were sacrificed because of the way that he integrated with these energies that
Mm.
demanded his position of power to control others. And he sacrificed his physical body because he refused to comply with these energies because he wanted this internal power. And they're like, well, you're going to be famous, but you're not going to be alive.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so when you watch that, it's like you feel the amplitude of Bruce in there, and you're like,
You feel the
whoa.
energy.
Oh yeah, it's palpable. It's like, whoa. And so I don't mind. I get called on, Elvis, Jimi Hendrix, whatever. I have fun with it. Janis Joplin, all my favorites that I'm a big fan of.
That you
And I'll
tune into.
yeah, and you sit in there and you just get the information and you just have stories. I mean, at some point, if I get around to meeting Billy and Liz, I want to share that because Thoth has been coming to me a lot, and he needs to get some of this information because that information is coming in real strong, and
Yeah.
there's some real interesting. I don't know where he's going with it, but Billy could probably give me a better understanding.
It's it. Well, I mean, there's such vast information coming in with those two for sure. And so it is really interesting. And for them to also know that they can connect, of course they do, but in the way that we all do. And I love that you're open to receive so many coming through for you, and that you, find such, a personal connection with that information as well. I think that's so cool. You're like, I love them. They're you were fans of theirs. And so the fact that they're coming even into your energy to connect with you, I think is very telling for us to know that we can connect. My old business partner used to connect with JFK a lot and all of that, which is super cool, and lots of fun. And I think that we can attune to that. A lot of people are skeptics when getting some of that information, but if you're really, a lot of that information can be, if somebody really knew them, could validate a lot of that information for you. And earlier you were talking about, having the MDs and having all of that. I have a lot of psychologists and therapists that are clients of mine who very often, and they refer their people to me, which is beautiful and great. They're sharing, which I appreciate it, but they very often say, Cortney, what has been able to happen within that 30-minute or an hour session was like 2 years with that person or those things that you talked about, like we didn't even talk about ever through therapy, and it was just a mind-blowing awakening. And what's cool to me, as you even said just a moment ago, people with these gifts so long ago would have been at the psych ward or this and that because they were feeling things that they didn't know quite how to explain or articulate. And what's really funny is when you say that, I do have a group of psych nurses and some of the staff that run the hospitals that actually do, like, if it's not every month, about every month and a half, they do a big group, and they all every month. And it's because most of them are quite gifted in the way that you and I are, and they went into that field and that work because they're so analytically left brain, which I love and I value, by the way. That they knew that they had this gift, but because society couldn't handle it being called their gift or an energy or whatever, they wanted that backing of science. They wanted that backing of that degree to confirm their own awareness and knowing. But every one of them has that gift and ability, and that's really what they want to be doing, which is the coolest thing ever. So science is catching up, and you can measure this connectivity and this connection, and it's something. When you really, I believe, you write those things down, you date it. The date is a skepticism thing for me. I still like to say, let's see, when I receive information, I know what truth feels like in my body, so I'll write it down. But I'll make note of it in that way. But then when it falls in a place, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. So if you really start to write down that aha, I call them aha moments or whatever, you won't need confirmation from anybody. When you start to really dive into your own owning what you receive, it's quite amazing. And of course, Billy and Elizabeth do that all the time, that they wouldn't be on this amazing platform if they weren't.
Yeah, they're creating their reality. They're manifesting it. I mean, literally manifesting their reality. And I mean, that's a good point that you make, Courtney, about that validation. I just had one of my students on my podcast. He's a doctor of functional medicine, very well known, and he's been working with me in the Three Pure Ones for about 12 years. And it's like the validation, because I started going over understanding pure source. So when we talk about the quantum model, and we talk about the entanglement, then we start talking about 0 point energy. And we're like, okay, now we're getting into how does this work? How is it that, Courtney and you can sit there and the next minute you wiggle your finger and I can feel it and I'm in like, China or whatever. It's because this entanglement that we speak of that, can be measured in certain areas, whether it's from the validation of, Albert Einstein or Max Planck. These are the guys that sort of stumbled across this realization of what we're talking of is this entanglement. So the 0 point energy is that um, black hole energy. Now that's something that the three Taoists have been working with for tens of thousands of years, and a lot of people that are historians or even Taoist masters get a little twisted because I reveal in my podcast, I'll reveal stuff, and they don't even get access to it because if I want information, I go to the Yellow Emperor who founded China. I sit down with him and get direct source information. I go to the Jade Emperor, who was well before the Yellow Emperor, 10,000 years before that, and I sit down and get real source information, and they freak out because how did you know this? And when you apply the information, as you said, you have this feeling of truth. It's palpable because you can instantly apply it and it becomes a realization and you're like, holy moly. So the black hole energy comes from the death of a star, right? So within Taoists, we have this particular ritual that activates your energetic body, the middle dantian, which is earth, which is basically your information, and it's also kept as the gatekeeper of that is high jade purity. And so that earth is highly magnetic, and the brain is electric. We get it, brain, electric, heart, magnetic. Now, the magnetism of the heart is 5,000 times more powerful than the brain in every way, shape, or form. So on a much deeper level, your heart has a little brain inside it. So on that neural network component is how Courtney and I would talk about coherence, synchronizing on a much deeper level. But the black hole energy is the infinite amount of source energy. And they're even speaking of it now. Some of my favorite physicists, Nassim from Humanities team, and even Greg Braden talks on it. But Taoists have been using this for thousands of years. So what happens is you do a specific internal alchemy exercise, and I teach people how to do it. It evokes the red phoenix, which rises from the death of a black star, from a star that is then turns into a black hole. The phoenix rises from the ashes, and then you are now in tune with what we call the sacred infinite flower that lies within the earth plane, which is within the sacred infinite garden. And so you have these different layers, but you can feel the palpability of what I'm speaking of. Courtney can go, holy moly, whatever he's saying, I don't really need to understand it. I can feel the energetic charge coming right from it. And that, I think, is what you're speaking of when you go truth.
Yes.
This is the truth that I'm speaking on.
Yes. And I think that that's also, when you talk about it like that, some people think because they don't have that the knowledge part of it, they believe that because they don't have all of that amazing information that you just gave, right? Sometimes the energy in its simplest forms matches. It's the same. And so, something so deeply leveled in the way that you just explained that can be just as beautifully light as the sweet little paintings, or there can be such depth within the simplicity. And just because somebody who is able, like in the way that you can, to retrieve that information from the Rolodex of that mind of yours, right, and into somebody who is more in that abstract, the feeling energy, it can be just as beautifully in depth as the next. And so I think that that's why some people, when we're comparing gifts, that doesn't always work. And so I also feel like many people will they will leave themselves short or without, because they will think, well, I don't have enough information yet, or I haven't quite gotten all of that context and those textbooks of information into my head. Using yourself, or even Billy. Billy is just a wealth of knowledge. Hello, clearly it's incredible. He's like an encyclopedia, right? And he's always like that. That's his true nature. It's amazing. But but the energy of a feeler, just the breath within a room can change it just as much as that direct information can. Just that
Oh,
abstract energy can change and shift a space just as much as that can. It's quite incredible.
no, it really is. Well, the point I was making, I was like, well, what's he talking about? The Death Star? Da, da. Well,
Yeah.
the black hole energy is the nucleus of everything, right down to a photon within the universe. So you cannot see it with your naked eye. There is no space between Courtney and I. It is filled with this black hole energy. And so the black hole energy is infinite, right? So what happened was my student, his son has a PhD and he works for UCSF, and they're doing a specific like uh, um, experiment or whatever you want to call it, but he's looking at the nucleus of a cell,
Mm.
and it has the same exact structure as the black hole. And he was like, "Oh my goodness, you taught me this." And then my son is actually researching it, and the epiphany moment of like, hang on, he just discovered that there's a black hole energy within the cell of a human body, and he's freaking out because I've been telling him this for years because I teach this stuff. And it's been going on for thousands of years. And then people are like, it blows my mind. How did these guys, the Tao, well, I'm just referring to Taoism, but I mean,
Right.
it could be any ancient indigenous practice. How did these guys know all this stuff? Because they're doing what Courtney and I are doing, which is connecting to direct source information, and for and that that supercharge you and I are getting right now, right up our spine, which I would call as a Taoist a Tai Chi pole, and it's like I'm watching you light up like a Christmas tree. It's like that is the power of what we speak of, and that's when you have that validation. And I speak on the feeling because you validated what I always remind people of. It starts with a visual audible experience.
Mm.
And I guess this is a shameless plug for the way, but the kinesthetic charge is the validator. So you get out of your way. You have to feel it. If you can't feel it, there's no knowing. And that's the knowing. When you think about it, you compartmentalize. When you feel it, you know it. And that's the be all or end all. That's the beginning and the end. And that way, if you have this overridden sort of like, I need to analyze, I felt that. That's undeniable. I just felt there, hang on, whoa. And I did it again. And every time I'm in the space of Courtney, I have my emotions change, they expand. I feel better. I feel lighter. Feel more expansive. I can't define it. I can't see what she can see, but I can feel what's going on. And I just feel really well. I feel whole. I feel complete. And that's so powerful, more
Mm.
powerful than anything else, in my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, and ditto. I mean, it is something that whenever, like attracts like, and when we find other teachers that are doing, and connecting to that same stream of energy, it is quite conductive. I mean, that's exactly what, you're expressing with, that rod of the Tao and all of that connecting in
Right,
that way.
right.
We don't all have to have the same language. We don't all have to do it in the same way, but we're all speaking of the same energy. And I think that's a really cool thing. Going back to that rebirth, you say that dark hole. And when you say the dark hole, it makes me feel like when I speak of that death, of
Right.
that energy, it's like we're so fearful of moving within the abundance of that, what is unknown within that dark hole.
It's abundant, timeless, endless, limitless.
On the other end of that, to me, reminds me to be that infant laying on the mother's, the creator's chest. And when that baby, when our youngest, sweetest of innocent souls are back right here, in this place, and we're held, if you've got babies and children, and I do, and many of you do, but I think of my own connection as allowing myself to view myself as that infant on the chest. But I at the same time am the mother, the creator, holding that baby. But I am that baby looking in awe at the lines on my knuckles and my toenails and my elbows, and being one, and that baby not doing anything but understanding that the creator will hold it and keep it warm. That creator will feed it, nourish it, diaper it, whatever. That baby knows nothing but just to simply be. And when we're in when we move through that fear of that black hole, and we move through that, what happens is we find that we're beautifully and perfectly held with the divine creator, source, light. We're one. We are that mother, we are that infant, but we must move through that energy to even get to that point. And when we attune to that vibration within that breath, for me, that is that explanation is exactly what I'm doing. When I take that breath out, I'm moving through that death and being almost reborn moment by moment to a higher frequency of energy. And it's quite remarkable to know that we can all attune to that space.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. I mean, and that in definition, and that's the part that Nassim is all excited about, which I'm more concerned because my personality doesn't do conspiracy theories, but there's trillions of dollars to be lost if he accesses this, black hole energy. Because what he's talking about is taking a phone, like a cell phone, and that's now your access to this infinite amount of energy, attaching it to your car, attaching it to your house. You have an infinite amount of energy. You don't, and it's free. So, and he's talking about 12 months from now having that accessible to the world. Now, what happens to fossil fuel, solar, all these things that have been going on as a way of making people trillions of dollars for many decades. And this technology, by the way, has been validated within the scientific community for over 80 years.
Mm, mm,
That's really quite something. It's kind of like the same thing where you and I can access things and you can witness a physical healing. That's been accessible since the beginning of time. Understand that, healing someone's cancer is, again, people need to remember you don't have cancer genes.
mm.
So if you're being given the idea that you have cancer, and this has happened to me many times where I've had people come away from huge institutions like UCLA, UCSF, and they're like, I just got diagnosed with cancer. I'm like, okay, let's take a look.
Mm.
And I'll be like, no. And they're like, wow, that's a tall glass of water. And I'm like, I can tell you right now, as long as I take a breath, you don't have cancer. And they're like, whoa.
I don't. Yeah.
And then they go back, and this is an example that I remember. They spent 2 weeks of the worst time of their life, feeling as though their imminent death was on the precipice. And then they go back and they tell their doctor goes, oops, my bad, I got the wrong blood work. And you're like, whoa. And this is scary stuff because
It's happened to me 2 or 3 times in my life, that exact thing, 2 or 3 times. And I don't trust doc. Both my parents were misdiagnosed. It's incredible the things that can come through in sessions. I've had clients myself who their mother was coming through, kept saying it was the heart, about many different things. That her painting was actually a big heart, and one of them was a nurse. I've known them both for a very long time, and she said, no, the doctors have checked it out, that's not the heart. A year later, she was going into massive heart failure, and she finally was able to get a heart transplant. It was the heart. The doctors were wrong. And so they call and they're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I mean, I can only tell you how it feels to me. It's up to you then to do what you need to do on your end. And thank goodness she's still here, but it was a very, very close call. And so I had another situation with a dear client who, and he was a great skeptic. He and his partner, it was a big group session. His partner, his session was beautiful. His grandmother was coming through talking about the red front door and the Christmas ornaments and all of these different things that he could tangibly kind of walk away with. And then this other person, his partners, had his part of his session, and his was all medical related. And you could tell he was like, this woman is an idiot. He's like, and listen, take a breath in. That can be his truth. That is totally okay. No problem. And I gave him the information. I can just tell you, this is how it feels to me. You figure it out. And so I doodled the whole time during my connection with him. About a year later, he contacts me and through Facebook Messenger, and he messages me and says, you're amazing. And it was like 10:30 at night. And I was like, well, yes. No, I'm kidding. I'm teasing. But I was like, okay, like, what do you want? What's up? And he said, can I call you? And I said, yes. And so he called me and he said, nobody knows this. So he said, I'm not sharing it with family members or anybody right now, but my husband and I just left the doctor's office this afternoon, and we were sitting there. I'm going through a heart failure. He was going to do some sort of a surgery with his heart. And he said the doctor wrote down what he was going to do during surgery. And he said he turned it to myself and my partner, and our mouths hit the floor. He said it was exactly verbatim what you wrote down within that session, that your doodle matched it. I just doodled the doodle and tell them what I feel, and then they can figure it out. Well, he wasn't listening to me, and that's also okay. Free will, free choice. But they went home. He grabbed that painting. He had it shoved in the bottom of the drawer. He said, I apologize. No big deal. You do whatever you want with it. But he said he pulled it out, and on the back, and they held both the doctor's doodle and the information from the back of the painting, and it was a mirror image. Those were his guides and angels talking to him. That's not Cortney saying it's the end all be all, here's the information. It's saying when we connect to source is going to show up for us. And when we believe that we have access and we connect to it, we have the ability to make changes. And so if there is something that needs to be done, I believe our guides and angels will come through and give that information to us if it's going to work in our benefit. You know what I mean? And so I'm a firm believer that our minds, if we walk away thinking and believing what it is that these medical modalities are telling us, then we're kind of setting our own stamp on life. And if we can get out of the way of that and come back into that energy of faith and hope and knowing an energetic connection, that we get to dictate where this is going, how we're going to show up in our lives, and how we're going to continue to heal, whether it's again through your modalities, a session, whatever that may be.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's so powerful what you're saying. It's like it comes back to the epigenetic model. It comes back to placebo, nocebo, all these things. And so I realized that decades ago when I did my first reading on someone, and I was given very clear information they're going to die 2 months from now, 2 hours, 3 days, whatever. They died on the dot. And I was like, why did you do this? And I asked them, I'm like, it's like, well, you have access to the information. This is for you to understand. And I said, well, can this be changed? And I'm talking to my teachers, and they're like, well, absolutely. And I'm like, well, I refuse to be the old expression, the bearer of bad news on certain things, because I know your consciousness can shift like this and change can happen. So instead of going, hey, you're going to die or this or that or blah, 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 no. I'm going to always be on a higher level of ascension, and we're going to go, well, there's a limited roadblock here. Well, let's create a mapping to debunk, destroy, eliminate that roadblock, so that person can continue in this lifetime doing what they're doing. And if there's no limitation to that, and the only limitation is your belief system, then let's get going. Let's get to this. Yes. And that just, completely validating all the stuff that you had just spoken on, because it really comes down to that. And people do this every day. It's like that's why I always remind people, your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. And that's when you get the authoritarians that, oh, you can't say that. How could you say? That's everyone's first baseline, is they need to believe in something, and whatever you believe in is your belief system, and no one gets to take that away from you. It's that simple. And it's so really important, because you end up like, as Courtney had said, or another situation like the one that I just referred to. And I refuse to be a participant in that type of outcome, where we can always boast to someone up to a higher level. And, I've witnessed this all the time. It's like I've had people call me, it's like, oh, my grandmother's in hospital, they're in a coma. And, I'll get a very clear, all right, let's just turn the juice on, boom. And they come out of the coma, oh my goodness, they came out of the coma straight away. And then there's situations where, oh no, they're not going to make it out of the coma. And I don't go, hey, they're not going to make it out of the coma. We're going to make it a really beautiful bang in transition to the next reality. That's completely okay. And in some cases, they'll be like, well, thank you for reminding me about how powerful this experience is on Earth. And they come out, or they go, you know what? I think I'm done here. I'm ready to head on up to another level of ascension, and then come back as a high message of consciousness. And, a very few people, only one person in my whole experience over 30 years, where they took their own life and they're still here.
Mm.
They're still earthbound. They still don't want to. They're like, you know what? I'm glad I put myself out of the minute. And now you got to reference this person was worth $200 million.
Mhm.
Never happy. So going back to what Courtney talks about, which is, there's excess and deficiency in what we speak of, where people get a glimpse of their reality. They've got this. They've been able to ride this perception, and they're getting an idea of, if I keep repeating this, this happens. I want money. Oh wow, money turns up. I want happiness. It doesn't turn up. And like most people's problem is, more money, more problem. That's their biggest problem, is I don't have this currency, and everyone's telling me it's limited, and I believe that it's limited, and I believe I'm not able to achieve this. So then I create this reality where now, even though everyone tells me the universe is abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, now the currency is limited. So now you've perceived that, and you're framing your reality that way. And of course, you get caught in that trap where now money is the most important thing, and I want more of it, but it won't turn up. But I could be, for me, I could take the Tao Te Ching and the shirt on my back and walk the earth being the happiest, most content, full expression of human form ever. Now, of course, I have children, so that's not going to happen. But if that was something that was meant to be, that's it. I mean, that's all I need.
It's so true. I have had the experience of, and it wasn't just overnight, and it wasn't easy, leaving corporate America and to be, betting on yourself, right? I going staggering down, a salary and, whatever, into stepping into this. That's what I do. I've been doing this work full time, like 15 years, I think. And I've been doing the work for 18 years. But there was a moment where, and when I say full time, maybe 13 years, I don't know, something around there. But, it takes a level of faith. And there was a moment in between there where I could have decided not to do anything. And when I was in such a financial space, there was massive choice, whatever. I still did my work. I still created from my heart. I still painted my paintings. And that to me is one of the biggest, greatest gifts, is that I too, with the shirt on my back and maybe a canvas or a cardboard box, for gosh sakes, to paint, like it's breath to me. To do this work does feel like life or death, and this is what I'd be doing, regardless. And so I think you can feel that, where it's not, there is an exchange of currency, there is an exchange of energy. And so of course I do get paid by doing my sessions, but that is because I also have children and electricity bills and life and things like that too. And so in this world, that's how we barter, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's a beautiful thing when we get to say that I found the thing. And it's just by showing up every day, not knowing even what that thing was until that thing matched and met me, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
1,000%. I mean, and you synchronize with it, and you realize that expression is all you need. That's that content, that whole, that's, well, what we call the singular, as the Taoist, which is the singular, which is the black hole energy, which is the event horizon, which is the abundance, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. And that's it. That's everything. And it's it's profound in of itself. I just love it when the Tao brings incredible beings like yourself into my field, and I get to share and create new friendships, and just be in awe of this humanness, this
Mhm.
experience that we have. Life on, heaven on earth is what it is.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it really is in how we're going to view it. And you said this, I think it was before we even went live or recorded. You said it, that orange sitting on the table, you at one end, me on one end. And so we all get to see what do I see within that orange on my side, from my perspective, from my depth of information. I can see the things that are, divoted in or whatever, or do I see the beautiful color? Do I see what is it that we're putting our focus on and our energy? And I believe that we are responsible for.
Yeah, yeah.
My father used to always say, who's in charge? And he always came back to me having to realize that I was, for my outcomes in life, my choices, I was the one with the willing participant to take action or to not take action, and both were fine, but it was up to me how it was going to be. And I think us taking accountability for our growth, our healing, our level of love, and showing up in the way that we view the world around us, it's only we can decide where to sit within our frequency of energy. So is it going to be half full, or is it going to be, oh my gosh, look at all that beautiful water and that hydration I'm going to get from it? What is your viewpoint? How are you going to look at the world around you? And are you going to do the work in order to continue to keep growing?
Right. Yeah, and it's a validation. It's like confirmation coming from yourself or myself. It's like learning all these things, the healing, the rituals, all this stuff. It's just to validate the human being's experience of a greater level of consciousness. So doing certain things like, if I take a spoon and melt it in front of your eyes as a party trick, it's just about concentrating that energy, and you watch it just start to melt. And people are like, holy moly. But that's a validation. You're now in a 5D reality. Or, if someone's got something like a healing they want to witness, and, you take I remember doing this on my father-in-law many years ago. He had a lot of these, sores because he had, diabetes and issues with healing. And he'd be asleep in his chair in the lounge room, whatever you want to call it, lounge room. I guess that's what you would call it in America. Is that what you call it?
Like a living room or a den.
Yeah, and so I just sit there and I just focus on his one of his sores on his hands, and you just watch it shrink in front of your eyes. It's like all of a sudden it goes from a scab to a, and the really profound part is when you watch this, it wiggles. So it wiggles and changes, and so you're in a state of consciousness, and this is all happening. It's like just as the same. And so now that I've shared this with you, all of a sudden I'm going to talk to her next time. She's like, yeah, I'm doing this on my clients. It's like, because that's what it takes. That's all it takes, is to access that for a fraction of a second. And that old, a 4-minute mile rippling effect is really what takes place, because it's a validation. It's a confirmation. And now you've accepted it in your reality. And now it becomes real to you. And now you can do it. And that's why I was like, at first, it was like all these sort of things would happen. When I first did it, and I always use this as the first time I ever did a healing like that was, 30 years ago. And I was like, I just got this list. And it was like, it's literally like, we've got, this is your training. Here you go. And I'm looking at it. And I got a phone call from a friend. She's like, I can't make it. I can't come and see you. I'm like, okay. What happened? Oh, I sprained my ankle. I'm like, okay, whatever. All right, I'll catch you next week. And it's like, hang on, whoa, hang on. She's like, what? Let me try this. And I literally, and this is taking things at face value. And this is what people need to understand. The face value aspect is so critical when you're childlike. And I just went through the list, and I was like, okay, and literally like Harry Potter with his little formula, some magic spell. And then I was like, heal. And then a WTF came out. And she's like, what in Tao's name are you doing right now?
Right.
Like, I don't know. I just read this thing, and then I just said, heal. And she goes, my ankle's completely shrunk. It's back to normal. And I'm standing on it right now. It was the size of a cantaloupe. And I'm like, look,
it's healed.
It's in the formula right here. What can I tell you? This is how it works. But when people take things at face value, and see that for me has always been one of those very easy access points. And it's only because that's how I looked at it. It's like, well, that's what it says right here. It says, do this, this, or this, instead of like, well, that doesn't seem possible. I mean, this is that sounds like some magical trick or what. I'm just looking at it as a recipe. The recipe is, and that's where I always tell people, magic is really powerful, because you can create architecture within those words and imprint into that linguistics. And that's what we do within Taoism. We cast a grid we put together within that grid, we use the parallels of constellations that are formated they're basically formations of constellations on this physical earth plane that
Mhm.
parallel the universe, and then we draw that energy in, and then we use a grid, and we use a bug wire, a couple of other little bits and pieces. We have a couple of magic wands, a sword finger, and poof, you have a magic that ripples out into the universe, and it becomes your reality. And you can tailor this stuff right down to the last thing that you can imagine in your mind. And the only thing that would limit the magic is you yourself. And so, I mean, and so I get, I had a lot of clients that are, Asian, Chinese, and, because of the culture and because I'm Taoist. And then I turn up to them and they're like, what's this guilo? And guilo is a not so favorable word within Mandarin that's basically white ghost, which is equivalent to not a very nice thing. And they're like, what's that? Why is this guilo turning up? Like, and their friends are like, listen, this guy's going to take care of whatever it is that you need to. And then after the fact, they're like, how do you do that? You're white.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, it has nothing to do. I was a Taoist priest. That culture is my heart.
Mhm.
Everything about the Chinese culture is who I am, and I
Mhm.
have been living that for many lives before this. Even though I may look like a Scottish warrior, that's not who I
It's
really
biggest
am.
goal.
Right. And so it's like this type of stuff is now you replicate it, I can replicate it. Everything is transferable, and it only takes a fraction of a second. And this is the part where people get all, it can't be that simple. Yes, it is. It's
Yeah.
really that's all it takes.
It's so incredible. It's really amazing how when we get rid of those judgments and that kind of preconceived notion, and that the teacher is supposed to look a certain way as well, right? Or the teacher is supposed to wear, I have a pair of mala beads on right now. I wear them here and there sometimes, but there's not a one thing that you need to really possess to be truly connected, right? And so I love that. I love that you're like, well, I'm just the white guy showing up doing the thing. Like, here we are, because that you're connected in that way.
Oh yeah, the stuff that I've seen within that culture, all the stuff, and I mean because it's within their belief system, so a lot of that stuff, the superstition goes really deep.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, I've dealt with a lot of people that have had black magic cast on them and all that kind of stuff. And once you frame it out, that they're like, "Thank goodness I called the Ghostbusters." My goodness, because because that's their belief system. I always remind people, you bring in what you believe. That's it. It's like, this is not my construct. I'm just here to clean the mess up. I'm like Harvey Keitel from Pulp Fiction. I'm the
Yes,
cleaner.
yes.
I
You're the
come in and do
clear.
I come in and clean up the mess, but this is all construct of your reality.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with me. I just happen to have the tools to help flatten that out, level that out, and realize that. But I mean, within that culture, it's. I mean, I've seen some crazy stuff, and when they attach to it, these people are real. They're off doing stuff that are attempting to harm others. And when you buy into it, and like the placebo nocebo, then it becomes real to you. And all of a sudden, these things are rippling out in your effects. And then you come to yourself or myself. And when we change the pattern, and let's just look at it from a scientific level, all it is changing that fractal pattern, and then it dismantles or derails the intention of that particular, whatever you want to call it. You want to call it a spell, whatever it is. But because they believe in it, it becomes real to them. And they're like, I'm living this. Oh my goodness, I've got this happening and that happening. This. They told me they're going to do this. And now we have to change that pattern. And
Yes,
so let's
yes.
get you to
We've
that
made
high
it so.
frequency.
Yeah,
Right.
they've made it so. That's it. That I do get that question, and often on the podcast, do I have something connected? Do I have it? I'm like, no. I mean, there's a way of clearing it now because you believe that there's an opening, but just even the thought allows there to be an opening for it, And so you just have to know, what you're connected to, that you're, be so strong in your own awareness that you're not opening that door to just any kind of energy coming your way. But if you believe it's so, typically it's so. Let's get to that, yes, that rechanging that thought form, that pattern, that energy.
Right.
And that's all it takes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's literally it. How are you going for time? Are you good for time?
No, I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to
I can,
I have to pick my little one up in about 15, 20
okay.
minutes. That's it.
All right. Perfect. Well, listen, I mean, I'm
Mm.
just so grateful. I know my audience is so grateful that we've spent this time today, and I look forward to you coming back on the podcast. And I really want to,
This has
continue.
been really a lot of fun. First of all, I really enjoy you, and I think that you're great. And I would totally like have you come on mine too in time if
Oh,
you're open to
fantastic!
that. That would be great. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that I think you're wonderful. So thank you for having me on for sure. Where do we hear it? Is it on all the streaming platforms like all?
It's on every platform from Apple to Spotify. There's about 15 podcast platforms. It's Consciousness of the Way, and then you can find it on YouTube. YouTube is interesting. You know, it's an interesting beast. I can get anywhere from 100 views
Yeah,
to 400 views on it, but it's like this type of material. So I find that a win because the retention time for most of my viewers on YouTube, if they're watching this and they watch it all, this we've gone over to, we'll probably cut this into 2 segments.
yeah,
And so people watch it. And like I get pretty much 80 to 90% retention on when someone watches one of these podcasts, and all my podcasts, including when I just do one with my wife,
yeah.
they're this long. So I'll throw in, and people are like, so much information. You go to quantum physics, you go to spirituality, you go to psychology, you go to
All the same
Taoist
thing.
practices, you go to, pardon me?
It's all the same thing. Yeah.
Right, right. And so people just love that being immersed in being able to put the pieces. Oh my goodness, I had an aha moment. It was like, and that's what it's all about. I mean, and so I've it's really going gangbusters on the platforms where people can download it. We're getting
Yeah.
thousands of downloads a day, which is really exciting. So people will go on Spotify or Apple, and they'll just download this stuff. And I kind of like I was like at first I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And I started doing it because I wanted to create material for social media.
Yeah.
And then it turned into like people wanted to hear this. I'm like, people really want to listen to this stuff? I mean,
Well, and
all I'm
sometimes
doing is what I know.
yeah, and sometimes I know I forget. Sometimes it's going back to just bare basics. And so yeah, no, and I appreciate the dialogue and having somebody who understands the scientist or the scientific, quantum physics, the spiritual, all of those different approaches to it. So it's really nice to be able to bounce that off with somebody who understands that. So yeah, I appreciate it. I Can I send you my like website or my information
Yes,
if you want to
yes.
use it in
And I'll
text or
put it.
something?
Yeah. I'll send you that, and I'll make sure I put it all on all the social. So when
And
we're doing it, everyone can find you, and they'll hear this, and you can find Courtney, and you're going to find her on all her social. And then, of course, if you forget that, just go to Forbidden Knowledge, and you'll find her there at some point.
yeah.
We're going to have all the social media. Are you on just Instagram and YouTube, or what else? Yeah.
Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the things,
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, all the things, and I'll give my website as well. But yeah, I'll send all that to you probably
Yes.
later this evening. I'm gonna go get her, and then we have a Halloween thing here at the house and trick or
Yeah,
treating.
me too.
I know you do all with all your
Me
kiddos.
me
So,
too.
but I'll send
And
that to you. And then can I send you some optional dates for you?
yeah, yeah.
Like one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
And I'll share yours too. So whenever it goes live, I can share it, of course, and we can do all of that.
Yeah,
So
that'd be so I'm really flexible. People are like, "Well, can you send me a schedule?" I'm like, "I'm ready to go." Like I've got this Stairway to the Stars coming up here in
yeah,
Vegas.
yeah, yeah,
So all the what I call the alien boys are coming to town. So it's like, man, I've got
totally.
a bunch of guys that, are tuned to, because a lot of people are like, "Well, what was Jade Emperor before he came to Earth?" Well, he's a transmutation of the Tao, which
Mm,
in essence is a realization of the universe that came into a physical form, over 20,000 years ago. And even before that, there was something else. And it's like, whoa, That's mind blowing. And, you know, when we speak on stuff, you feel the charge and you're like, okay, this stuff is real.
Yeah.
This is not like just someone rambling off. And most people are like, you can't know this amount. No, I can't. I don't subscribe to saying I know anything.
No, but
and the validation and the validation comes in, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and then they go, and just like the black hole, it's like, here's all the information. They're like, my son actually discovered it in the middle of a cell of a human cell. And it's like, you can't make this stuff up.
No, you cannot make that. It's so true. And I love that you even said the word woo woo earlier. I mean, I've got lots of clients that, you know, before would have thought my clients realize that my work, there are some people that are woo woo, but those aren't the people that are doing the work themselves and growing either, though. So that sure can be woo woo, but my work is sacred. My work is not woo woo. And so, yeah, I agree with you. And I think that, I don't know, everything's changing in the most beautiful way. And I appreciate you being you.
Well,
look, it's 2-2-2-2. It just was 2-2-2-2-2 right up there on that recording time. Pretty cool.
You can't make this up. You cannot make this up. It's like all of a sudden, and we'll have to go into sacred words, sacred numbers, sacred letters. Oh yeah, deep within the core of who we are. This is the type of stuff where everyone gets their moments. It's like, you know, for Taoists, and just a last note on the numbers. If you see 4, you go running, because 4 means su, and su means death. And if you can also pronounce it as 4 as su or su. And so 4 for Asian culture is a no-no. And like, even though I'm like, hang on a second, forbidden knowledge, but it's all perception. It's got nothing to do with, and people are like, well, what does that mean? It's like, it's what they believe. Understand that.
Yes.
It's like, it's got nothing to do with anything else other than what they believe. But because they can pronounce it in 2 ways, and you know, Mandarin has sort of been the evolution of like 7 different language changes within like the Asian culture, within Chinese culture over the last 7 emperors to finally create Mandarin as you see it today, and it's the spoken word within China. But like, man, oracle bone reading, you know, 5,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, when, you know, the Yellow Emperor was using it, is it just stick forms and drawings and all the rest of it. But it's all, and then I had this one girl who literally, she was driving and she stopped at a red light. It was 2 a.m. in the morning, and she looked down at her cell phone, and 444 came up on her cell phone. And she stopped. And then the light went green, and then a semi-truck just went through the green light that she was supposed to go through. And then she walks around with the 444 around her neck. She's tattooed it on her hands. It's like, that's my number. And damn straight it is, because it's all, where are you at in that frequency? And the last thing with the angel numbers of 111, the resonation and frequency of the earth is 0.1 hertz. The heart is 0.1 hertz. The brain is 0.1 hertz. When in coherence, the universe is 0.1 hertz. What do we have? Forbidden knowledge. Right?
Forbidden knowledge. It's true.
You know, I mean, I love when I see Billy do that. I want to thank you, Cortney, for coming in and sharing your time with the audience. Just a profound being. I'm very grateful to have you in my life. And I look forward to doing this again really soon. So on a closing note, I am your humble servant and seafood Taoist Master San Quinn, signing off. See you in the next one, guys.